Hey guys, and welcome to a new video. Today I want to talk a little bit more about my league starter, which is going to be the Rage Vortex Berserker, as I mentioned like 2 days ago, right? Today I want to talk a little bit about like early leveling trees, as well as like early gearing and so on. So first of all, the disclaimer has to be here. I am not a racer. I personally don't mind if it takes like 5 hours till maps, 10 hours, even if 15 hours until maps. I personally don't mind. I don't need to be the first one killing any uber pinnacle bosses or anything like that. So I am just enjoying the league start. So I'm not gonna like get myself crazy just because I'm slower progressing or faster progressing. We're gonna see how it goes anyways. It just can be like that there is a lucky drop and all of a sudden on level 50 you have like 3 divines or something, right? This would speed up the process quite heavily. But in the other hand, if you're not getting lucky and you load up your first map after the campaign and you have like 3 chaos on your stash, shit happens. You never know. And I personally don't want to like make my league start experience based on setting myself like some goals that I personally just don't care about, right? So that's the reason why my kind of league starters are always like poor designed in that case, right? But I still want to go with some early leveling trees just and explain on the way why I pick certain nodes and why I skip other nodes, for example, right? No cluster jewels, actually no jewels whatsoever, just some basic stuff that we're gonna get early on. And on the next part, if I go back here, I'm gonna also give you my kind of like end game kind of version with cluster jewels and stuff like that. This is like really end game stuff, so use at your own risk, whatever, right? And this is not really the absolute final version because I have no idea what kind of like crucible trees I'm gonna get on my weapon, and it's just pure speculation, for example, right? And with that means that, for example, is my rage vortex big enough, right? I want to have like this massive huge rage vortex just wiping off the entire screen, and I don't know how many of, for example, titanic swings and towering threats I will need, right? If I would say like, okay, let's try the first cluster jewel, for example, and we take one time towering threat, like one medium cluster, right? And I feel like it is good, then most likely I'm gonna skip an entire large cluster jewel and go for like more life, more tankiness, more some whatever, right? There is like so many small little things that you will find out once you're playing, like you actively play, and then you feel like, hey, I'm too squishy, right? Hey, my damage is not good enough. My AoE is not good, right? And this is the things that you're gonna adapt later on, right? Just wondering, why did I take this node over here? Because this was actually not really planned. This doesn't really matter. So, as I said, I'm going to give you guys my early leveling tree and what I planned for endgame, right? And so I want to talk about, like, what is, like, the thing in between, which is going to be, like, one of the most important things because nobody cares about, or at least most likely you're not going to reach that kind of stage in the first, like, 2 weeks of the league. So, good. I would say let's just load this one up. So we're gonna start as a marauder because we're gonna go berserk. So challenge 1 or step 1 is completed. Early on, we're just gonna take the complete usual life nodes, right? The gear is gonna be empty just because, honestly, what do you get on league start? 99% is gonna be solo self-fund, right? So everything will be life resistance, right? Some whatever rings, whatever chest, maybe you find a tabby, maybe you get a corrupted 5-link, right? It doesn't really matter too much. Everything is gonna be life resistance and a weapon with good amount of damage. Here, I wanna just show you guys one thing. Let me quickly load up Path of Exile just to showcase that. Because we're playing a melee build this time around, right? That also means that all of our damage will be based on our weapon, or at least the majority of our damage. It's not like a spellcaster where you just try to get like plus level of gems because this is the best way of scaling gems. For melee builds, that's not really the case. So a +2 level of socketed gems chest for a melee build is just way worse than something like a +2 chest for any spellcaster build, right? But one thing that we need to take care is our weapon. So every time we feel like, or I feel like, doesn't matter, that our damage starts to be bad, we're gonna try to get a new weapon upgrade, right? One easy way to do that is with a vendor recipe, and this should still work because all the like leveling kind of weapon recipe changes did all affect like the spell damage, or yeah, damage to spells kind of thingy for casters, right? The way this works is basically you either have a magic or a rare rustic sash that you're gonna find throughout the campaign anyways, right? You just keep in mind, if you find a rustic sash, don't instantly just vendor it. So keep in mind the vendor recipe with 1 blacksmith stone, and then you can take like any weapon that you either find or from the vendor. It doesn't really matter, right? Just try to get like a good item level and good base damage or a good base itself. So this could be at the start of every act and stuff like that. And then you can basically just vendor the weapon, a blacksmith whetstone, and for example the blue rustic sash, and it will give you like a 40 to 50% increased physical damage. And if you do the same, it's like tier 8 or something, and if you do the same with a rare one, this one rolls a little bit higher, like 1 tier higher, and goes up to 50 to 64, for example, right? So this is like a super easy thing, and once you do that, let's assume we just did that, and then you basically just AUG, right? See what you get, and then probably Regal, if you have one, and this would be our kind of like leveling weapon, and now we have a 67% with increased attack speed. So something like this would be pretty nice on top of just like having, yeah, just for leveling weapons. Another thing that I most likely gonna do, just to keep that in mind, right? If I go to PoE trade, let me quickly like log in here, just because the league is now standard, so I just need to like reassign everything. So here's my account. PoE trade. Another thing that I like to do, if we go like standard, online only, doesn't matter, right? So for weapon, you want to have at least high physical damage. I would assume that early on, either we go like for a flat physical damage impale kind of thing. I think that's the way that I'm gonna go, or alley damage. But the thing is, like, my endgame version with Voidforge is gonna be an endgame, is gonna be an alley version, right? But I think until that point, we're just gonna go with a pure fizz impale, because I think that has like some really good damage for not a lot of investment overall. So what is important here is the base level. So let's assume, if I can find it, let's assume I'm like level 54, for example, right? So I'm gonna go here, maybe like 1 level higher, because, you know, if I find a good weapon for like a chaos or something, and I know, okay, in like 10 minutes I'm gonna have the next level up, so why not, right? So we're gonna do the max level 54, and we're just gonna go with like a high physical damage. Let's just assume we're gonna start with 100, just so it doesn't show all the like kind of crap thing, right? Then we also want to have a two-handed melee weapon, and then we search, right? And then I usually just sort by physical DPS. And sometimes you're gonna have like, okay, this is probably a bit ridiculous over here. I don't even know what this weapon is. Yeah, it's standard, so there might be some legacy kind of whatever stuff, you know. So, but still, there are sometimes unique weapons that you forgot about, you know, or a rare weapon. And if you say like, oh, I have like a 200 DPS weapon with level 50, right? And then you just go like, let's say any non-unique. And then we just sort by physical, and then you're like, okay, wait a second, it's like a 500 DPS weapon up there. I mean, chaos-wise, you can still go to the bottom. I most likely on League Start gonna say 1 chaos maximum, because maybe you find like a good trade for like an alchemy or a fusing or something like that. And if we have currently a 200 DPS weapon, and there is like for 1 fusing a 380 DPS weapon, it's gonna be a massive upgrade. It's just important that you put in your base level, not that you buy something that you cannot wear, right? Very important. And I wouldn't really touch this weapon at all, because if it has too high level, I mean, if it's rare, I mean, you probably would not Exalt Slam that anyways, right? But either way, weapon is very important. So either with the vendor recipe, with the whetstone, the rustic sash, and your weapon from of your choice, or you just go to PoE trade, put in your max level, and then just sort by DPS, and maybe you can snipe a very good item for like an alchemy or something, which will definitely speed up your leveling process, right? And this is also the reason why I personally am not the biggest fan of going for weapon specialization early on. That means, obviously, if you have global two-handed modifiers, they are worse than a two-hand axe modifier or a two-hand sword modifier, right? But the problem is, I would personally limit myself there. I know the notes are good, but I want to just have a weapon with high DPS. I personally would not mind, is it a sword, is it an axe, is it a, I don't know, like whatever, right? I know my endgame weapon will be a sword, but I don't want to take sword notes early on until that, right? So let's keep on moving over here, right? The next step that I would do probably is something like kinetic impacts. It's not really the best note, but it's still for early leveling. It just adds generic damage, physical damage for two-handed weapons. Then we could take something, if we go over here, down there, we have Soul of Steel. We also have, I mean, the thing is, like, there are some good X notes here and there, but overall, you're just looking for life notes for Fortify, for example, here. This one gives you actually Fortify on hit, like melee hits Fortify, which will be very nice, but -3. But these Steadfast here, there are other Fortify notes, but they are not giving you maximum fortification. But overall, instant war cry is pretty nice. Then we could go up over here, and I know probably you will say like, yo bro, you just have no damage notes overall, but I don't think it's gonna be absolutely necessary or mandatory, right? Then here we could take like something like versatility, or like this might be not even bad early on if you take it like that, just some accuracy notes, because obviously in the lower level stages you need a lot less accuracy for getting hit capped over there, right? Then if you are struggling with resistance, we have like easy access to some resistance notes over there, even there here with the diamond skin and the note before that. So it's like, if you need it, like especially early on when you need res, this is like 2 points early on, will not give you like a million DPS increase, so therefore you can take one of those over here, right? Then we can move up over here, take like Juggernaut, Jewel Slot, Barbarism, and even if you want to, can take something like Resolute Technique, because RT is not really the best thing to do for later game builds, but early on, you know, you're not gonna have, your items have like very, very low stats, like based on the item level, based on the tiers that they roll, you will not be able to gain like a good amount of crit multi or critical strike chance. So just thinking about removing all these like accuracy requirements, I don't think it's gonna be a big DPS loss overall. And then you can opt in to something like max resistance if you want to, or you can go down to bravery. The jewel slots are also like, you can take them, but honestly, skilling jewel slots if you don't have jewels is like a waste of time, right? So maybe you just skip the jewel slots overall. Then the question is basically, will you have the red blade banner early on or something like that? Then we can opt into rage, for example. That is pretty strong. This gain 1 adrenaline, if you change stance, this is a thing from the past. I think GGG already realized how strong this actually is, and straight up like removed it. I think now if you swap stance, you remove ailments or something like that. Something that is just not really necessary at all. Good. What did I forget? So here we have another like destroyer node, is like also generic two-handed stuff, and then we would be level 52. I guess at this point we're gonna have our first Ascendancy. This is like a bit questionable. I personally would go for Warbringer. If you don't have like Red Blade Banner or the KM Spirit Gloves and stuff like that, Warbringer is not that crazy, so something like Aspect of Carnage might be really good as well. So you can like, yeah, you can just like go Aspect of Carnage and just live with the more damage, which will help your leveling thing. If you do have actually a very strong weapon where you say like, dude, with this weapon I can easily go into yellow tier maps, for example, then feel free to add something like some sword notes over here, some axe notes over here. This is just based on what you're gonna find. I personally will not make the decision. I will just see it. I mean, if I find a crazy good sword, maybe on PoE trade for like an alchemy and that has like 400 DPS or something, dude, that's super fine. You know, I'm probably gonna invest some into some sword notes here and there. But overall, what I want to say with that is, I personally think it's not going to be too important how your leveling tree looks like. I mean, you have the option, since you're not running any cluster jewels or anything like that, you're going to have skill points for days anyway, so you can always opt in for whatever you need in the end, right? And then it's just about like getting a couple regrets and spec it a bit different. So basically, what I want to say on top, let me pull out the second one. I want to keep the tree, like, let's say, very similar. I think this is, no, I want to keep the trees kind of similar, so it doesn't cost me like a big ton of regrets, but still keep in mind, if you say like, oh, I'm gonna go Warbringer first and then Aspect of Carnage, or let's assume you go Aspect of Carnage first, but then like a level later you get the Red Blade Banner and you're able to play Rage Vortex on its own, then you actually need like, what is it, like was like 5 regrets per Ascendancy point, or even 10. I think it was 5. So that's like 10 regrets. 10 regrets on like day 1 of the league is kind of rough, right? So I would rather gamble to be like, I mean, I'm probably gonna have the Red Blade Banner on Life Search, and then I will see how much they're going for. For example, if they're going for like 5 to 10 chaos, I know, okay, probably after a couple hours of playing, I will be able to afford that. If they are going for like 50 chaos or 60 chaos, right, then I probably don't even bother with it. Like, honestly, because the Red Blade banner, I want to play with the KM Spirit Gloves in the end, right? So Red Blade banner would just be my early leveling, get Rage Vortex enabled kind of unique. But if it's like 50 chaos or more than that, then I would not even bother with it, and I would just wait until I get the KM Spirit Gloves, and I would just play something like Blade Storm until I get to this point, right? So I don't have to play Rage. I would like to play Rage Vortex as soon as possible, but if it feels clunky or bad, then I'm just not gonna do it, right? But it's gonna be very early in the start. Talking about gems, this is something a lot of people are like curious as well. Give me some links. What do I need? What do I link my Bladestorm with? But what if I go Volcanic Fissure? Or hey, I want to level with Frostblades instead. Like, do whatever you feel like. I think like having fun is the most important part. For me personally, I always purchase the gems that I'm gonna use late game. They're like in my kind of like endgame PUB, right? This is not fully min-max, but I do have here my Rage Vortex in the 6-link setup, my Totem setup, my Auras, the ones that I reserve on live and whatnot, right? Do I need this early on? Most likely not, but don't forget, you're like constantly killing stuff, you're leveling, right? And this also means you're leveling your gems next to it. So if you know, hey, I want to play with the KM Spirit Gloves, I want to use Berserk, I want to use like a high level Vitality or Arrogance, you know, just because you don't use it right away, it does still make sense for me to start leveling the gems, you know. There is like different perspectives on that, but I personally, I don't see a reason. I do have like my damaging setups, and early on you don't need to have like 5 different auras activated and a mark on hit setup. You will be super fine without all of that stuff, but that still means that you can level the stuff in preparation for later on. And trust me on that, even just leveling gems to like level 20 and 0 and then use the vendor recipe with a GCP, like a Gemcutter's Prison, to reset the gem to level 1 with 20% quality and then re-level them up will first of all save you a lot of currency, and secondly, once you start to think about switching the build, like selling all the 2020 non-corrupted gems will most likely go for like 25-30 chaos per gem. So the sooner you start doing that, the more profit you're gonna get out of that. So as I said, gem-wise, I'm just gonna take everything in the late game. Yes, I'm also gonna have like Petrified Blood in my skill setup, right? Will I use Petrified Blood? No, obviously not, because, hey, I cannot even sustain anything, right? But I still want to use it. So, obviously, what do you need? You need, like, 1 damage aura, or even Determination as a more defensive aura. Throw in a Herald or something, and then you have, like, a 4-link for your main setup, basically, and you're good to go. I mean, it's still the campaign in the end. It's not tier 16, 100% daily, where you actually have to deliver quite a decent amount of damage or survivability. But I would definitely recommend if you would like to or want to subscribe to the channel, because I'm gonna do daily updates on the build. So I'm like the past couple of leaks I've been doing a league start diary. For me, league start is from killing Hillock, from creating your character basically, until the Atlas is clear, okay? That means, I don't know, like 120 maps or whatever we're gonna have. All the maps are clear with the bonus, like the Atlas is fully filled out, and all the favorite map slots. Once I reach that point and I say like, okay, my Atlas is done, I got all my passive skill tree points, the Atlas passive skill tree points and everything, I've all unlocked my favorite map slots, that is when League Start ends for me, right? So the League Start journey will most likely take about, I don't know, it depends on how well the build performs, but I would say an average of like 4 or 5 days, and I should be done with the entire Atlas. Could take up to a week, I don't really mind either. But the important thing is I want to like share every single day on what I have done, what I've accomplished basically, what upgrades did I get, what special drops did I had, how I did make currency, if I made some currency, what is the further upgrade path, what currency am I saving up to get this and that item, for example, how do I progress my maps, how does my 4-link, so every day you're gonna get the most recent update on my League Starter with the PUB, and there you can see what stuff I took and why I did take it will be explained in the video basically, right? So that's basically from my part, this like early leveling tree, and then it just depends on how much currency can I accumulate and how the steps will go from there. I think like the journey is kind of like the interesting part, and I personally don't see a point where I need to make like a setup for 1 divine, a setup for 5 divines, a setup for 10 divines, a setup for like 15 divines, until like how many POBs do you guys need, right? But overall, I know where the journey will go, And on the way, we're going to develop and min-max the build and find out while we're playing this build, what does it lack? More tankiness, okay, we're going to adapt the tree, right? I'm going to share everything as always and explain the mechanics behind everything. And then I can just see how it goes. And I want to have like a very cool character in the end. Doesn't have to have the most damage, doesn't have to be the fastest, but I just want to have like a super quality of life build that just can do all content. Most likely gonna fucking one-shot bosses with just one use of Rage Vortex. We're gonna see how the journey is gonna turn out. Alright guys, POBs are in the description below, and thanks for tuning in, thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.